But today's event is designed to celebrate innovation and inclusion in the workplace. And I'm honored to moderate our first panel discussion titled Innovations in Culture, Engagement, and Collaboration. Time permitting, we will open it up to take questions from you, the audience. Please use the note cards, and you should have these on your table. So please use those note cards and hold those up, and a chamber staff member will come around and grab those when the time is appropriate, and we'll see if we can get to those at the end of the discussion initially. So we have an excellent lineup of very qualified panelists who are representing some diverse industries and sectors. So we're excited to introduce Erica Anderlie is the Human Resource Manager for Atlas Copco. Dawna Koppin in the middle there is HRG Leader, Human Resources at Plante Moran. And at the end down there is Craig Vanderburg, the Chief Operating Officer with Trion Solutions. So welcome, and thank you, of course, for joining us today and sharing your expertise in this space on culture, engagement, and collaboration. So let's begin, of course, by getting some context about you and your organization. So let's take a few minutes, and Eric, we'll start with you and tell us about you, yourself, what your role is at the organization, what your organization does, and then a little bit about your response to the pandemic currently and what phase you're in.
Hello, hopefully everyone can hear me through the mask, but my name is Erica Anderlie and I'm the HR manager, one of them for Atlas Copco. We have about 40,000 employees globally. In Michigan, we have a few locations. Our primary headquarters is in Auburn Hills, and there I share a building with 3 different Atlas Copco companies. We also have locations in Plymouth, in New Hudson, so a lot of presence in Southeast Michigan. My career has been, it started at Oakland University. I have my degree in human resources. I've been in HR almost 15 years now, majority of those roles in an HR manager role, business partner role. So excited to talk a little bit about Atlas Copco, and thank you for the opportunity. Sorry, last question. We're about 50-50, I would say, split in the situation right now. We're 50% of our workforce is at home, 50% in the office. So really have a lot of different experiences in that respect.
Thanks, Erica. Dawna?
Hi, I hope you hear me as well. It feels like you can't through the mask, but hopefully you can. My name is Dawna Koppin. I am with Plante Moran. I'm on our HR leadership team and I lead our HR business partners. I've been with the firm since I graduated from Michigan in 1992, but I'm a recovering CPA, is what I like to say. I started out as a CPA. And converted to human resources many years ago. So Plante Moran is a professional services firm. So we provide accounting, audit, tax, consulting, and wealth management services to companies around the world. We have about 3,300 staff members in 4 different states: Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, and Colorado. We have about 20 offices distributed amongst those states, although about 10 of them are in Michigan, and about half of those are in Southeast Michigan. So we also have 4 international offices. And what was the other question?
The pandemic response. Where is your organization?
Yes. So we're very fortunate in the sense that as a professional services firm, we were able to pivot to 100% remote back in March of 2020 and did it pretty successfully. And so now we're in a phase of trying to get transition back to some form of hybrid where we recognize the value of in-person. And so I would say on any given day, we might have 30% choosing to come to the office and have some in-person time. And we're hoping that increases if we can manage the pandemic and all the consequences of that. So.
Thanks, Dawna. Craig?
Great. Good morning. Craig Vanderburg. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Trion Solutions. We're headquartered right down the road in Troy, Michigan. We have an operations center in Scottsdale, Arizona, and an operations center in North Miami Beach, Florida. Kind of rough places to have to go to during the wintertime.
Just thought of the same thing.
It's rough. Yeah. So Trion Solutions is largely what's referred to as professional employer organization, or a PEO. We are in the HR outsourcing and support space. We service small to mid-sized clients all over the United States. We have about 170 professionals throughout our 3 offices that service every week about 50,000 employees and about 700 small businesses around the country. Our focus is to be the backroom support for what is largely becoming the onerous component of HR that small to mid-sized businesses now have to deal with, where large businesses dealt with it on their own for a long, long time. Very complicated, certainly in some states more than others. If you're thinking about opening up an office in California, I would recommend absolutely don't ever do it. Let it annex itself off, because I think it's getting very close. Our chief legal officer, under both federal and state OSHA requirements in all 3 states, deemed us as an essential business from day one through the pandemic. And we have been, for a variety of reasons, 100% back on all 3 premises since July of last year.
Great. And we really had a little pre-talk before, and we understand, and certainly this isn't a discussion about culture in the pandemic, although we're going to hit upon some of those things, but most things about great organizational culture transcend any of these external factors that we're all dealing with. So we're going to hear about their longstanding organizational cultures, but in some cases about the impact the pandemic has had on their culture and how they're resiliently, moving through that process. But first question is going to be about culture. In a pre-pandemic study by Glassdoor, 77% of people would consider a company's culture before applying for a job there. And over 50% consider it more important than pay. And that's pre-pandemic. I might argue that it's even higher than that now at this point in time. So let's talk, each of you, about your culture at your organization and what it means, what characterizes it, what makes it unique to your institution, and how do you cascade and reinforce that throughout the systems you have in place to motivate and engage your people? Got a lot there, but let's talk about your culture and give us a little bit about it and the context for it. So Erica, we'll start with you.
Yes, that is a very lengthy question. So I'll try and answer it the best I can. It's so hard to define what culture means to like each individual person. So for one person, it might be the feeling that you get when you walk through the doors of your office, how others treat one another. And for some, it might be your career potential, the trajectory that your current company allows. For others, it might be, oh my gosh, I love the culture of my company because they offer so many benefits and perks and great health insurance and all these other factors. So it's unique, I believe, for each individual person, what defines a good culture or a great culture or an organization that you want to stay with over the long term. And so if I had to define what Atlas Copco's culture is, I would say it's employee centric. So our vision as an organization is first in mind, first in choice. And so obviously when you hear that, you typically think about external customers, of course. But when I apply that to my role in HR, I view that as I want to be the employer of choice in my community. To be first in mind, first in choice, that relates to employer of choice. So when I view culture, I want to hit on everything that an employee might desire in their company and try and take a holistic approach to that. To address the, someone that really looks for challenges in their role and they want to see career trajectory and they want to know that there are going to be roles available for them in the future at this organization. That's what's important to them and what defines a good career and a good culture at an organization. Something that we did, I'm going to give a lot of examples as I talk today because I think that's most helpful. But one thing that we did at Atlas Copco is we created a formal process to help people along that career path. So we actually listed out a whole document of all of our job titles in all of the US and what are the educational and experience requirements for those jobs. And then we gave employees a form that they could fill out and take to their manager to discuss their own experience, their own education, their own strengths and opportunity areas, and list out 3 of those possible career paths and talk about that. What am I missing right now that would hold me back from obtaining that job if I choose to go down that career path in the future? And the aim with that is we know that as we heard today, 41% of employees are thinking about leaving their current organization. And so I don't want people to go externally. If they're looking for another opportunity, I want them to know there's a ton of that within Atlas Copco. And so if we can just start having these discussions and be open about, the fact that people will develop and move into new roles over time. And that's something that's natural and going to occur. Let's help our employees be prepared for that next role. So let's do what we can to get them the mentorships, the job shadowing, the product trainings, the soft skills, all of that. Let's work on that now. So when that role that you want in the future comes open, you get that role within Atlas Copco and not somewhere else. So that's just one example of targeting that people may want to move, up in their company and have a different career path. And let's put a program in place to make sure employees know how to initiate that discussion, how to get the ball moving in that area. And so when I think about our culture and being employee centric, I want to hit on every single one of those areas that might be important to our employees, so that when they look at the total package, no matter what avenue is important to them, we've hit on that and we have something to provide to them. So that's, getting me back to being employee centric. I think that's how we really put that into motion and make sure our culture meets the needs of our workforce.
Good, thanks, Erica. Dawna?
Yeah, so thank you, Erica, for teeing that up so well. All those facets of what I think makes people want to work somewhere, you very eloquently laid out there. And so I think the common denominator I'm hearing today, and that's probably obvious, is we keep hearing people-centric, employee-centric. And so that is the key. And I think one of the unique things that I'm really proud of at Plante Moran, and it's due to our founder, Frank Moran, or one of our founders, is a lot of the principles of a people-focused organization. He started when he started the firm almost 100 years ago. So he was a philosopher turned tax accountant. And so he was a really unique individual who was talking about things way before they were popular in terms of things being very people-centric. He wanted to build a professional services firm that was like the Mayo Clinic, where we would have people lining up to work there and people lining up to get services there. And the key to that is just hiring really good people, taking care of each other. So he had a lot of really neat terms that we still use today, even when we're building programs or thinking of new initiatives. And there are things like the golden rule, which I heard earlier today as well. We use that all the time. Some have heard we're famous for our relatively jerk-free work environment. And he had originally said, I want a jerk-free work environment. And then I think he kind of said, well, everyone has a bad day. Which kind of leads to the next one, which one of his sayings was the whole person comes to work. And I think that's kind of common now to think that way. I think more and more companies are thinking about that, but he was talking about that decades ago. And so I'm very proud that we have that foundation to build on, and it's woven into a lot of our programs. So a couple of specific things, because to your point, Eric, I think it's helpful to have something to take away. Honestly, one of our probably cornerstones that's pretty easy to implement is we have what we call a team partner system, or a team lead system in the case of a non-partner group, where when someone joins the organization, they're immediately assigned a team partner and they're immediately assigned a buddy. So if they're early in their career out of college, they already have two people that are advocating for them, there to coach and mentor them, and who are very responsible for being a career developer and someone to help that person navigate their career. And so it's very instilled in us. People are proud to be buddies. Team partners are excited about who's on their team. They feel a great sense of, I think, investment in those folks. And so you carry that through your whole career. And you even hear people talk about having grand buddies and legacies and things like that, more in the sense of fun. But I think that's so important, and it's really kind of what gives people, as they're navigating their career, they know they have people they can trust and they can sit down with and say, here's what's not feeling good for me right now, whether it's a work-life balance issue, it's something in their career that's not going well, something they're not enjoying, or something they're really passionate about that they want to explore more. And I think that's been critical to our culture, that sense of community. firm-wide with a 3,300 staff members, it is hard to stay connected as we grow. We kind of feel like we want to have a small firm culture, but we continue to grow. And so using technology like an intranet, using things like Yammer, if anyone's familiar with that, which is a way for your staff, for employees to casually connect with each other on various topics. So we have some Yammer pages that are more personal in nature, and we have some that are business in nature. And it allows people to sort of speak more freely, more casually, exchange ideas. We've done a couple campaigns this year, especially being all remote, where we have staff can submit stories. One of them was called the Thankful Campaign, and they could submit stories to #thankful on Yammer. And it sounded, you know, when it first got published, I thought, okay, that's nice. That sounds cute, you know. But man, when those stories started rolling in, we asked people to just write something they're thankful for. And it was so cool to read just some personal, I couldn't believe how many people contributed. And it just really led to a sense of, we are all a community. We're all in this together. We're all experiencing a lot of the same things. So I think things like that to help people stay connected go a long way. And I will say video, if you have video technology, to be using video to work remotely or across geographies, use it. We, as a firm of primarily accountants, we've probably always been a little reluctant. I would say our HR department took the lead on video before the pandemic, and then the pandemic forced us all to use it. And it's a game changer if you can get comfortable. We're in each other's homes. We're seeing each other's kids run by. That opened up a whole sense of connection as well.
So I don't know if I heard the product right. Enamored or enamored?
Yammer, it's a Microsoft product. If
All right.
you have Microsoft Office and you use SharePoint, it's an offshoot of SharePoint that allows you to connect like a social page that's connected to like one of your, if you have an intranet on SharePoint.
Great. Good. Thanks, Dawna. Craig, what's going on at Trion?
Well, there's a lot going on over there. We're big believers in our organization, though, that culture is just purely the operating environment that supports your vision, values, and purpose, right? So if your operating environment supports that, you're probably executing for your clients on a daily basis. And it makes it really easy to have a consistent, we believe, a consistent culture for the entire organization. And that includes, you know, everything from the kind of support you would give to your clients is what you execute in your culture and your organization for everybody that's on the team. So culture for us is, it really is living and breathing what our sales organization is pitching out to the public. We're trying to bring on clients in the first place, and then executing on that with the team on a daily basis, you know, whether that be support, growth, health, team, just executing on those values on a regular basis. I think that we have a little bit of different approach, you know, lots of great ideas. For us, a little bit different approach is we're huge in the technology. So we are an HR outsourcing firm, an ADP, a property and casualty agency, a large benefit agency, a law firm, a tax agency, all wrapped up into one. So it's real easy to take lots of technology and tools and disperse those every day to try to segregate those components. So from a culture perspective, what we're trying to do is get back to engagement in this respect. Don't email or IM or team somebody in your organization if you can walk down the hall and have what we used to do, a conversation with somebody, because you'll never have the same experience with technology tools that you do face-to-face at a table collaborating. It just, and it's interesting because from a culture standpoint, we've built the collaboration areas, we've built lots of common areas, and we see it used all the time. So I really think from a culture perspective, we're supporting that culture.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Jennifer mentioned the 41% of employees in 2021 that are potentially looking for new jobs. A recent study by the Achievers Workplace Institute indicated that 78% feel more disengaged in 2021 than 2020. And imagine our 2020 was 9 months of the pandemic, so it's gotten worse, and engagement plays such a critical role. So Craig, we're going to start with you on this one. After a year and a half of challenges we've all weathered and continue to face, how do you keep your employees motivated and engaged?
So that's a great one because I thought we really got it 6 months ago, and then I thought we got it 9 months ago, and I thought we got it 3 months ago.
Love the honesty.
And I'm pretty certain it's going to change next week as well, because it is an evolution for sure. Obviously, the outside challenges that we're dealing with still in this crazy quasi current, post, pre, whatever environment for a pandemic, it's impacting people's personal lives, I think, more than anything. So we're trying to deal with that. We think from a culture standpoint, for us, as I kind of mentioned, we feel that support for each other is the most important thing. We also believe for what we do as a business, the best way to do that is together. But we understand that we have to address those challenges. So we try to pivot and ebb and flow. You know, we have some folks that are remote because they may have very specific health needs, or they have very specific child issues or something of that nature. So we're going to ebb and flow with that, but we're going to try and stay consistent. But the big key for us is we're trying to keep an environment of normalcy of our culture that we had pre-pandemic kind of in today's environment. So we are doing our best. We have this huge work hard, play hard culture at Trion. And we used to do a lot of really cool team things in all of our offices. And so we're trying to do those now. You can't do them the same way. So we're ebbing and flowing. We're trying to bring those events into the operation, as opposed to, you know, the great events that you did outside that are starting to come back, but not necessarily all the way back there yet. And then I think more than anything else, from an engagement standpoint, we promote big time that our team members encourage others outside of the company to join Trion, because we have had the best experience with new team members when they were brought in by somebody else from the company. So we're big promoters of that. We create incentives to bring friends and family into the organization, and we think it's a great tool for that.
Great, thanks. Erica, what about you? Atlas Copco doing with engagement in this time?
So I actually have notes because I have so many examples of the things that we've done. I'm really proud of this. I think that we try, and again, with the employee-centric culture, put ourselves in our employees' shoes and say, okay, what are they experiencing with the pandemic that's still ongoing? And I think about, you know, all the great benefits they used to have when we were all in the office. We had, you know, fruit baskets out that were just wonderful all over the office. You could take free fruit. We had, you know, a masseuse that would come in once a month. We would have, you know, yoga every Tuesday. And for hygiene reasons and, you know, just physical distancing reasons, we can't do any of this. So they have a lot of things that have been taken away from them. And actually, those are huge cost savings to the company. So like our thought process is not to save that money. Our thought process is, how do we give that back to our employees in a like new and unique way, virtually in a lot of cases? So one thing that we did, for example, is we had a gym reimbursement program previously where we give you $250 to be a member at a gym every year. And a lot of people weren't comfortable with that. They didn't want to go into a fitness facility, or they were even shut down for a period of time. So we said, okay, we're saving that $250 per person. How do we give that back? We extended that now to be all fitness related activities. So if you want to buy a kayak for $250 and that's what you do now because it's outdoors and fun for you, go be healthy. Go do that thing. We'll pay for it. If you need new running shoes, if you want a Peloton membership, at-home gym equipment, what do you need to be healthy mentally and physically? We want to take care of you in a different way. So we just, no cost to the company, we just changed that policy. We created a walking challenge. There's something called the Stroll app, and I did a lot of research on different apps you could use, but I like the Stroll app because you could do a walking challenge with 100 or more people in the same challenge group, and not a lot of apps will allow that. And also it was a globally used, you could use it at any country, and we are a global organization. So by downloading the Stroll app, it's like $3 or $4 per employee. You can see physical activity of one another. It links to Fitbits, it links to Apple Watch, it links to your phone. And if you carry your phone on your walk, then it counts your steps. And it also allows employees to message one another. You could post photos of your walk and this beautiful scenery that you're seeing, photos of your family, and it kept people connected through everything. And we're going to continue to do that challenge every year anyways. And of course, like the top runners would receive a small fitness related prize for being, first, second, and third place. We transitioned to a virtual Weight Watchers. So that's an organization that went virtual. Obviously the weigh-ins are something that you can't do anymore physically, but I guess that's a bit of the honor system. And, but it's still provided, the company can provide, the employees' contribution to Weight Watchers, and they get the recipes, they get the coaching individually, they get a little bit of that networking with others. And it's not just about losing weight, it's about being healthy. So again, minimal cost to the company. We did a thank you video. So, we're a mix of people in the office that had to be there based on their role. And we're a mix of people that were forced to work at home based on their role. And so we wanted, sometimes a simple thank you for what you're doing and keeping us going can go a long way. So there's an app called, I think it's iMovie, we asked people that were at home to video themselves saying thank you to the workforce that was going in during the pandemic every day. And so some were funny, some of the videos were very sentimental, heartfelt thank yous, but you can piece them all together in a video collage, and then it creates one video that we sent out to production to thank them. And then I'll just mention one more because I really thought this was unique. There's an Atlas Copco cookbook. So it's branded Atlas Copco, but it's 70 recipes from all over the world Atlas Copco employees have put together. So we created this cookbook. We got copies of each of them, sent them to their home addresses, and said, while we cannot gather for a meal together like we used to, cook something from a different culture, something you've never experienced before, do it with your family, send in your experience and your pictures. So it's a way to kind of bring us together again remotely. So that was really fun to see what employees did in that respect. So I think, the sky's the limit. It's just about how creative do you want to be? And I really try like every few months to do something new. And it might be a new perk to the employee, like giving them back their medical premiums for their health insurance because we are all collectively very healthy together and we had extra funding left over. Or it could be something like the thank you video that's no cost to anyone. It's just a little bit of time, but goes a long way. So I could probably go on and on, but.
Well, let me
Yeah.
stay with you, Erica. So how has participation been in those new distributed or virtual engagement efforts that you've been doing? Have you had success at the same level as previously, or what are you seeing?
I would say about the same level of engagement. I have had people say that pre-pandemic, they were actually thinking of leaving and exploring their options, and seeing how well we've like shifted gears and still provided all these benefits. I had one employee say, like, I can't believe how much you care about us. And I'm staying with you. Like there's, we have some flaws, any company does, but if you can really like get to the heart of employees and find that thing that's meaningful to them, they'll stay with you over the long term. So yeah, we've had a great response from a lot of these different things that we've done.
Great. I loved all those. So if you've seen any of those and thinking them all down and you want to catch up with Erica afterwards, I'm sure she'll be around to give you some of those tips. Dawna, why don't we kind of stay on that same subject and talk about Plante Moran and how you're measuring engagement at Plante Moran and responding to perhaps what you're hearing and the feedback that you're getting from the employees on their satisfaction with engagement.
Yeah, so I think I could kind of split that. There's kind of what we were doing pre-pandemic, and then there's ways we've had to shift that during this past year and a half. But on a really global level, we work with an organization called Great Places to Work, and we do an annual robust survey every year. And not only do we conduct that survey, we get really detailed results. We get input from the Great Places to Work organization. And then we take that data and we slice it down and we really cascade it down to leaders at the local level so that they can really watch for some very specific trends. And we always score really well and we could brag about that, but we honestly look at the most minute changes in something and we'll figure out what's really going on, what's the root cause, and how can we address that. So that's something we do from, utilizing professional help and those sorts of things. And we really value that process. But then I'd say, we do a lot of just talking with our staff. We do town halls, we do levels meetings at local levels. And this year, honestly, what our biggest secret sauce would have been during the pandemic is that sort of that team partner structure, having those relationships in place, and being able to get to each person wherever they're at. I know for my team, spending one-on-one time, everyone had different challenges, and things I could do to help them, stay engaged. And then on a broader level, you spoke to you just trying to create some fun, and understand how people are feeling. So we did a lot of those types of activities as well. But right now, the key is really just conversations and getting to people with what they're struggling with to keep that engagement level.
Great, thank you. Erica, back to you. I should have mentioned this. Do you have a formalized measuring process at Atlas Copco for engagement and satisfaction as well?
We do. Yep. Every 2 years, we have an outsourced company that completes an anonymous survey. Yep. Yep, absolutely. We look at the results, analyze them. We have to create action plans based on that. We also measure engagement. Of course, we look at turnover rates. My goal is always to be less than 10% turnover every year. There's going to be some of that that's natural, of course, retirements and whatnot. But we measure our engagement that way as well. I also, something that I do to measure engagement is exit interviews. I'm constantly, if someone leaves the organization, I want to sit down and have a genuine conversation with that person to understand what happened and then actually do something with that information. We're always looking at trends in exit interviews. And then something else that we do at Atlas Copco are stay interviews. I don't know if you've heard of what this is, but it is, be careful with that terminology, I think. But really at the heart of it is if you have an exit interview with someone, it's too late. You lost them. They're going to work for another employer. But I can have the same conversation, 30-minute conversation with employees that are here now that have not resigned, and say, instead of saying, why have you chosen to leave the company? I can say, why do you stay with us? And is there any reason why you might leave our company? And just by changing the wording a little bit, I can have a good dialogue with that person and get to the root of, is there anything going on that we need to change and adjust now so that you don't ever leave us? And you do get a lot of really good information. If nothing else, employees appreciate that HR is taking time out of their day just to check in with them. And some are just really blown away by that, So I really encourage doing stay interviews to kind of keep a gauge on employee engagement.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, I agree with you. And right now we're sort of reinvigorating that concept as well. But depending on the structure of your organization, I think it's going to vary. In some cases, having HR drive that makes sense. And then I would say in our organization, again, because of this structure of already kind of having mentors and that village in place, we encourage our partners and we'll give them some ideas of ways they can just directly get at some of that stuff. Sometimes the best way is to just directly ask, what keeps you here and what's making you think of leaving, if anything, and just open up that dialogue.
Good, thank you. Craig, I'm going to start with you on the next question, but if you want to add in on anything on that last part, go ahead as I keep us moving along here. But my last question before we get to the audience, and certainly be thinking about your questions and write those down and hold them up so we can get those collected in advance. So share any specific lessons learned as we've had a workplace in flux, obviously, these past 18 months, and any special success stories that you may have, if it's good or bad, but certainly let us know what your thoughts are looking back.
Well, I'll tell you, and I guess it's probably, it's not entirely a secret sauce. Communication is so huge, I think, in any organization. We took a proactive approach, especially because a large chunk right out of the gate, when we all remember the 2 weeks to slow the curve thing, we took a huge proactive approach that we had to be extremely communicative with the folks that weren't going to be off-site for some period of time. So we made a decision to have our EVP of marketing communications do a daily update that hit everybody's email at exactly 3:00 every single day for the first 5 months of the pandemic. And we communicated on, we've got some folks from our organization here that have seen that. We communicated on everything from the chief legal officer updating us on, federal, state, county issues in all 3 venues. We communicated on where the company was. We had open, honest communication on where our client base was, the deterioration of some of the client base, how that impacts revenue and overhead. So we communicated on vital things every single day for 5 months. I think we started getting to a point where some of the stuff almost got a little redundant. So we started slowing that down. But here we are 18 months later, and we still make sure that we've, something that we got a lot of great feedback on is that we love hearing from senior management that often. We actually have done this for, 7, 8 years. We have a monthly, once a month, a monthly breakfast meeting where we have all 3 operations dial in. We have a breakfast and we do kind of an open book management to the entire organization. But what we found on the communication, here we are 18 months later, is that we do twice a week still that communication updates of what's going on right now, whether maybe something is impacted by the ongoing issues related to the pandemic, updates from our clients because of the pandemic, measuring the outcomes for clients, and then just giving everybody an up-to-date every week, twice a week idea of where the organization is today and how you're impacted by that. And I think, our biggest takeaway is telling us more is really a good thing. So I would promote that
Good.
significantly.
I found the same example here at the college. We've had weekly updates and more attendance than our in-person ones. And I didn't have a lot to say sometimes, but obviously people just wanted to be there. Dawna, what about you? What lessons learned?
Yeah, same. Communication was key, and transparency from the leadership, I think, was very well received in our organization as well. I think our biggest takeaways is we already had some ability to work remote. We pride ourselves on a pretty flexible work environment, but what the pandemic taught us was, wow, we can take this a whole nother level. That we can be very, very productive remotely. And so we can acknowledge that and probably even broaden our flexibility options. But we also recognize really how much we do value in-person time at the right moment. So we're kind of now launching into this workplace for your day where you get to decide what's your workplace for the day based on what you have going on and what your role is. But taking into account what are some of the high priority in-person touch points that we don't want to lose, and how do you balance that with the great productivity and flexibility we all enjoy working remotely as well. So I'm excited for how that's going to continue to expand. One other thing I wanted to share was so I think a lot of our organizations are probably very meeting heavy. We live by our calendars and one meeting to another. And it was one thing when you're in person and you're sort of wandering between conference rooms and back to your desk. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like plop in my chair and go from one call to another, to another, to another, to another, which clearly led to video fatigue and very full days. And so we instituted the 25% challenge where we encouraged everybody to try to cut any meetings they have, especially those recurring ones, by 25%. And don't schedule meetings for an hour or a half hour, schedule them for 20 minutes or 50 minutes. Also starting them 5 minutes after the hour or ending them 5 minutes before the hour. And I mean, some groups embrace that more than others. I know just from personal experience in my department, it was a game changer. Just that simple concept of giving yourself breathing room. And when you stack meetings on top of each other, it's exhausting. So that was probably a very simple but key aha moment. And then again, can't stress enough, video and just virtual workrooms. We created the concept of virtual conference rooms where people could kind of join and work independently, but together, especially if they were working on a common client, and try to have the feel of being in the same room, even when you're not. So.
Great, thank you. Erica, lessons learned?
I have similar thoughts actually, and thank you for the idea of the 25% challenge. I wrote that down. So yes, that's excellent. But yeah, I would say, Atlas Copco, even pre-pandemic, we gave a lot of autonomy to our employees. We had a work from home policy already established that where you could flex and work from home. But I would say what this taught us is that we really can trust our employees. We can trust you to be out of sight, out of mind, and you're still getting your work done. And I always, we're all struggling to determine, should we come back? Should we not? Back in the office, is that best? Some think yes, some think no. But ultimately, if we don't take some of what we've learned and apply it to the new world someday, we're just missing out on so much. I mean, we didn't learn the lesson. We can adapt. Our employees have proven that. And so we have to take at least a piece of that into our new work environment. So I think that's my big takeaway, is just trust your employees to get the job done no matter where they're at.
Great. Thanks, Erica. Thanks all three of you. All right. Now to the audience questions. All right, one at a time. We do have a few out there, so thank you.
Literally on a napkin.
All right, it does say Craig and Dawna on this, so heads up as I read it. Do you have some successful or challenges faced in the onboarding strategies of new hires? So obviously, Craig mentioned about fit and referrals being a key item, but now once you get to the onboarding process, what are your strategies there that are successful?
So that's a great question. One of the things that we actually promote and sell to our clients that are, kind of behind the curve to larger companies around the country is that our clients are pushed into electronic onboarding of all new employees, right? So just from the pure onboarding aspect of that, that includes everything from applicant tracking, rolling into actual onboarding of an employee, into open enrollment for employee benefits, annual enrollment for employee benefits. The neat thing about that is you see, because we have what we call worksite employees and clients all over the country and all the time zones, is that we see, we can measure and see activity in that client portal all the time. So you see a lot of robust activity in there at night when you get to go home and be with your spouse or significant other to talk about, what do I want to do with employee benefits? What do I want to change? Do I want to change my deferral on my 401k, whatever it may be? So huge promoters of, if you haven't got there yet, feel free to call Deneen at Trion Solutions because she can help you get there. But getting your teams, if you're not there yet, getting into electronic onboarding, not only as a useful tool kind of pandemic era, but it's certainly a wave where you got to get to, because employees want that flexibility, right? People don't want to fill out paperwork. People got lots of questions. So you can go to the help desk right in there. You can ask customer service or HR items. You can get some interactive activity in there, but there's that the onboarding component, we believe, is probably the most useful area of technology nowadays, for sure.
Great, thanks.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Dawna?
Yeah, I'd agree on the user experience, meaning your new person coming in. Technology can take that and make it really, really positive, and we're doing the same things. In addition to that, these might seem obvious, but I'll still throw them out there. We did have to pivot to a 100% remote onboarding because we were 100% remote. So our technology, we would ship computers, have everyone log into every Monday, we run a technology orientation for that week's new starts. We also do a firm orientation that's run by human resources in a way to kind of standardize at least that initial experience and get them off on the right foot. But then their true value is done when whoever was the hiring manager takes over from there, and making sure that hiring manager has a good onboarding plan in place. So our HR business partner group tries to work with those folks and make sure they have a plan. And we have some ideas and templates of things they should incorporate into that plan. We also check in with all of our experienced hires 2 or 3 times once they start. Our HR business partners do that. We survey them. and follow up on the surveys if needed, just to kind of check in on that experience being positive. We also offer what we call Experience Plante Moran. We run it 3 to 4 times a year, and it's sort of like we hire these hundreds of college kids 3 times a year, and so they get to come to this big intro core for a week, and of course it's virtual this year, but so they're starting with a start group, and it's a lot of fanfare and training and things like that. And for our experienced hires, that's not feasible because we have people starting in all types of positions. So 2 or 3 times a year, we offer what we call Experience Plante Moran. We hire all the experienced hires from that period of time. And it's a really fun session where they almost get to have a peer group. We talk a lot about our spirit and principles, and our culture and our history and our organization, so people understand all the different service groups. But then we also do a DISC assessment, and do a workshop related to DISC, which is really, really popular. And then they can come back from that and talk about it with their supervisors. Everyone loves to talk about like personality types and work styles and stuff like that. So that's another way.
Good, thank you. Erica, this one's specifically for you, and it's related to your why stay conversation. So have you tracked that in the past in terms of your success with it, in terms of actual numerical outcomes? And has it worked?
So we have only been doing it 2 years. So take the data for, what you will with that. But absolutely, yes. Yes, we actually, what I gained out of that is we had targeted our field service technicians. That was a role that we have the most turnover. Obviously, they're in customer plants with the COVID situation, traveling. This is clearly a role that's hard to keep people in it. So we did that just prior to the pandemic and then have continued on since. But I've gained so much insight into what they do, how we can support remote workers. And also there were a couple that say, I really want to get into management. How do I do that? And they would have never brought this topic up had I not sat down for 20, 30 minutes with them and just started talking to them about, what might keep them in the company. And so, just off the top of my head, I cannot recall anyone that has left the company that I've conducted a stay interview with. So I think that's a good KPI.
And obviously you're gathering important data as part of that process that could be a lead indicator of issues that you might be facing either
Yeah.
externally or internally at the organization.
Believe it or not, one of them who shows fantastic potential, his name's Takwuma, and he is in our service organization, has an engineering degree. And he said, I want to get into a managerial career path. So I scheduled him for the next iLead course through Chamber of Commerce. And so he'll be attending that. It might be
Chambers.
ongoing now. Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yes. The Chamber's great iLead program for young professionals. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, Dawn, I'm going to come back to you on this one. I believe I have it right. Somebody correct me. It says, what impact has this pandemic had on your 20 plus, and I'm assuming that's age, 20 plus age group, correct me, okay, on your workforce? And obviously it sounds like you're talking with a lot of individuals in that particular demographic.
Yes, we would have a high percentage of our staff group. When you're kind of saying 20 somethings, those early in their career. Yeah. So it's been interesting. It's twofold. I would say my team, we've been dealing with probably a lot more mental health challenges amongst our staff this year than we've ever seen before. And I would say a good share of that is probably in that 20 something group. Many of them were very isolated if they were either living alone or some were still living at home, working from home with parents and siblings and chaos going on around them, or roommates who didn't have serious jobs yet and things like that. So it was really hard on them. And we did really have to make a conscious effort to understand what individuals' challenges were. But then on the flip side too, I think we're finding that in general, that demographic also really, really enjoys the flexibility of remote work as well. And so kind of finding that balance of engagement that's needed. You don't just want to work every day to produce stuff and then go live your life. It does mean something to be part of an organization and have relationships. So finding that balance is where we're at today.
Craig, Erica, this is probably our last question. I'll give you an opportunity to jump in on that one. That's certainly something that most of us are facing in terms of that generation.
So I'm probably curmudgeon on that generation myself a little bit, but I will tell you this, it's amazing from a technology aspect. That generation runs circles around everybody else in our organization, jumping onto Zoom and Teams and probably installing their own Microsoft Office. I mean, it's amazing, right? So technology is amazing. I question myself and my peers if we did a really poor job from a work ethic standpoint from time to time. So I think we've got some building to do with that generation on balancing life and work, right? So from my perspective, what we've experienced is that it seems like we've got a life delay now. You know, that's kind of, we talk about it a lot with kind of that 20-something to 30 generation of, we're all going to get there. It's just a matter of when we started. You know, I started at 20, generation before started at 18. Now we're starting at 27, right? So we're all going to get there. The only thing is, though, we need the resources from 23 to 27 to kind of step up a little sooner. So we're trying to incorporate what can we do from an employer standpoint, culture-wise, to help support that, but kind of bring that generation along to see how important their additional skills are at getting there sooner rather than later. I think I'd put it that way.
Yeah, certainly are. And I appreciate what you said about the work hard, play hard philosophy. Our work hard was measured in hours, and you could use productivity based on how much time you spend in the office seat. But obviously theirs is looking at still working hard, but it's certainly dependent more on outcome driven delivery. So it's quite a transition. Erica?
I think those are all great comments. The only thing I would like to add on just generational differences is I've attended some seminars that really just go through these generations and what they experienced in their lifetime that now make them have these certain, you know, parts of their work ethic or so on. You know, and I would just say, if you haven't already, study that a little bit, kind of go through the history and time, and it's quite fascinating. You come out of it and say, it's not that millennials aren't committed to their employer, it's that they saw their parents, you know, after 30 years committed to one company, go through this huge recession and get laid off. So because of that, any one of us would be less committed to our company and more apt to see what's out there. And so it's not that, you know, millennials, you know, tend to job hop. It's, you know, it's just part of their own experience throughout life and what they have seen. So I just encourage everyone to kind of go through that history. It's very enlightening.
All right, we're going to conclude the panelists. I certainly want to say thank you to Craig and to Dawna and Erica for your great participation and expertise in sharing your organizational stories on culture, engagement, and collaboration. Let's give them a round of applause, please.